Let's stay with politics. And the ruling National Democratic Congress has held on to the Amenfi West constituency in the Western region, beating the opposition Patriotic Party, the NPP, by over 2,000 votes. Now, certified Electoral Commission results from all 102 polling stations puts the NDC candidate Eric Affol ahead with 15,809 votes, representing 52.64%, while his main contender, the NPP's Paul Dechi, obtained 13,076 votes, representing 43.54%. Abraham Kojobuedi of the Progressive People's Party and United Front Party's Elvis J polled 1,032 and 113 votes, respectively. Voter turnout was 49% of the total 62,364 registered voters in the constituency. A colleague on our political desk, Joining political desk here, that's Malik Abbas, that is also the editor for myjournline.com, has joined me now in studio to help us understand what really went into this particular by-election and how come the NDC did manage to win. That's the first thing, and by that particular margin. So, Malik, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So, one would say, okay, for some, they saw it coming, but did we really expect this? The NDC winning this particular seat once again?
Oh yes. I mean, it was pretty obvious. It was a tall order for any other party to win other than the NDC, because this constituency was created in 1992. It's one of the oldest constituencies. It was later that Amenfi Central was carved out of the Amenfi West constituency. It had always been an NDC seat. It was an NDC seat until 2003, when the MP at the time, I think David Asante, he resigned from Parliament. When he resigned, it became necessary for a by-election. And in that by-election, remember, the MPP was in power at the time. So Agnes Somfo won it for the MPP in that by-election. But the very next year, after that by-election, the 2004 elections, the seat went back to NDC. This man who died, John Jitia, he was the NDC's candidate in 2004. And he won back the seat for the MPP. And he retained it until he died in October this year. That necessitated yesterday's by-election again. So it was a tall order for any other party, especially for the MPP, which I mean had been increasing in its vote, but it was a tall order for them.
But one would say, if the LDC, for instance, was so confident of winning this particular election, why then did we heard of a lot of things happening on the said day and even days prior to the particular by-election? Developmental works, projects and all, roads being constructed and all, just hours
in the middle
before,
of the night.
Exactly, hours before the election. So does it not raise quite a few eyebrows here and there?
Well, but you have to expect these things to happen. In politics, it is practical reality, and the practical reality is that the NDC the NDC didn't want to leave anything to chance. And it's not just about winning. The NDC was certain it would win, but it didn't just want to win. It wanted to win probably by a bigger margin. If it won by a bigger margin, it would point to that and say this is a clear testament to the fact that the people still have confidence in the government and in the president's ability to deliver services, goods and services to the people and development projects to the people. This is an example of it. The people have voted for us by even a bigger margin. If it lost some vote, it would have ceded some bragging rights to the MPP. So it didn't want to lose any votes in this election. Remember, in the 2012 elections, the MPP who had 26,000 plus votes. That was how much he won. This Paul Dechi, who is the MPP's candidate in yesterday's by-election, was also the MPP's candidate in 2012. He had 16,000. Now, the NDC didn't want to lose any votes. It didn't want to appear to concede any votes to the MPP, because if it did that, it would have ceded the bragging rights to the MPP.
But so, did they manage to do that?
Unfortunately, no. Probably because the turnout was exceptionally low. It was actually less than 50%. But I think that the NDC should be worried, because if you look at the fall in the number of votes of its candidate, the person who died had 26,000. This guy who won yesterday, that's Eric Affol, he had 15,000. That's a loss of 11,000 votes. That's
quite significant.
Quite significant. 11,000 vote loss is massive. The MPP's candidate, he had 16,000. He had 13,000. He lost 3,000. That's quite significant as well. But compared to Eric Affol's loss, that's for the NDC, losing 11,000 in one constituency is certainly a big deal. And I think that the NDC strategists will be looking at this and asking the questions, in spite of all of the things that you pointed out, the road constructions in the middle of the night, the bringing the by-election close to his barrel or bringing the barrel close to the by-election in order to obtain some sentimental support and all of that. In spite of all of these, if the party still lost as many as 11,000 votes compared to the opposition's loss of 3,000, that should worry the NDC.
So what could have gone wrong for the NDC in this particular by-election?
Well, it's a number of things.
Okay.
If you spoke to constituents, a lot of them were clearly incensed by the fact that government was bringing them development only after their MP had died. And they thought that it was a deliberate ploy by government to try and get them to vote in a certain direction. And if the government was desirous of giving them the development that they deserved, the government should have brought them. It didn't have to wait for their MP to die before we will come and start building roads in the middle of the night. For some voters, it is entirely possible that they considered that and decided to engage in a protest vote. Also, remember that the turnout itself was extremely low. Yeah, if the turnout was higher, we probably would have seen a better performance. But of course, it still doesn't take away the fact that this turnout affected both parties. Why is it that it affected the NDC more than it affected the MPP? Of course, it is also possible that the MPP retained its candidate from 2012. The NDC changed their candidate because the MP died. So that may have also accounted for what happened. But I think it still has to worry the governing party that it cannot take anything for granted. It can't be complacent, because to be complacent would mean a lot of people won't come out to vote, and that will affect you. So if people don't come out to vote in 2016, you may retain some of your votes, but you are going to lose more than your competitors would lose. If you lose more than your competitors will lose, remember that the difference between President John Mahama and Nanado in the 2012 election was 350,000. If you lose 11,000 in one constituency, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. So let's look at the NPP and how they managed to, aside all the internal bickering or all the issues with the party, still pull such a number, such a figure. About 46%.
The candidate is the same. Paul Dechi is the same person who contested in 2012 and who contested in yesterday's by-election. So he's known to the people. He's contested these elections before. He lives there. The people know him. So that may have played a role in all of this. It may have also been the case that they put out, in the few days to the by-election itself, they didn't have too many problems. Of course, their general secretary was in that constituency campaigning when they called him back to Accra and suspended him. I'm talking about Kobna Japan. It doesn't appear that played a big role in all of this. Remember also that if you talk to the MPP consistently, what they will tell you that they concede that they have problems at the upper level of the party. They have problems in Accra. At the grassroots level, the people don't care about what the party is doing at the national level. In Accra, they don't care whether Paula Foko is suspended, whether Paula Foko is working, whether there is disagreement between Paula Foko and his supporters and Freddie Blay and his supporters or not. They don't care. At the grassroots level, the people are concerned about what is happening there. So it is entirely possible that even though the party has problems at the highest level, those problems are not transcending to the lower level. So the lower level still remain intact. Their support base still remains somewhat intact. That would have accounted for the situation where, even though generally the turnout was low, their loss compared to that of the NDC is not as heavy.
So then I can then draw a conclusion from that the suspension of these national officers and a few other persons from the party has not really affected the party much. If we are to use this as a basis for that.
Well, it may affect the party to some extent, because for many of the middle class people who live in Accra, if they are persuaded by the allegations and claims that the party set aside its constitution and it took these measures, it may have some influence. But generally, on the grassroots level, you may find some support base, some people feeling disappointed that these things could have been managed better. But when they go to the polling booth, the fact that at the top level there are problems will not influence who they vote for. It won't change their mind at all. So the support base at the grassroots level may remain quite intact, even though the body language of the people themselves may not be one of confidence because the upper level of their party is not very united. It will not change who they vote for. They will still vote for their MP.
Right. Many thanks for your time, Malik Abbas Dabo. And Malik Abbas Dabo is with myjoyonline.com. He is the editor there, and he's also a member of our political desk here on Joy News. You're still watching News Desk here on Joy News Multi TV. We're taking a break. We'll be back shortly with some more.